Okay. You ready?
Yeah. Hi, everyone.
Good Tuesday afternoon. So we have just a couple reminders today. It should not be a long one. We're going to talk about SC Alt, manifestation determination reviews, enrich requests, MFS reminders, audit update, and then timelines and multiple disabilities review. Oh, don't freeze on me now. My computer is spinning, so just give it a minute for me to switch slides. All right, we're going to pull it up on Laura's. You're not going to be able to see the slides until this picks back up, but at least we can talk through them. Okay, we'll try again. Okay, here we go. All right, so Laura is going to talk about SC Alt for a little bit.
Hey, guys. So let's talk a little bit about SC Alt. So they're going to be pulling a pre-code on November 10th. So make sure that any students who are going to be taking the SC Alt are coded in PowerSchool as such, because that's where they pull all the information in terms of who's taking it, what test they should take, and that's also where they send, we get the initial order for materials. So you can find information about SC Alt on the bookshelf. It's under resources and then SC Alt. Excuse me. And be sure when you're making your decisions about SC Alt that you're using that guidance documentation that's on there. It really helps lay out what students should be taking SC Alt versus what students shouldn't. So make sure that you're using that when teams are making decisions. There are some upcoming training dates. So there will be a window open to register for new test administrators, December 11th through January 17th. And then those actual trainings will be held in February. They're held across the state, so I will let you know as those come up and send them out to you. There is a new online training this year, and that will happen February 1st. But again, like I said, I'll send out information as I receive it in terms of that training. So if you've never administered SC Alt before, you will have to go to one of the face-to-face trainings.
And on that note about PowerSchool, Laura and we realized there's some questions about what that should look like in PowerSchool, and not much guidance has been given. So Laura and I are going to go through this afternoon and take some screenshots that you can share. Oh, Laura already did it. So those directions will be
Next slide.
Oh, next slide.
Maybe not.
No? Okay. Well, we'll send those out so that you can see where to code the stuff in PowerSchool, and we'll share it on the bookshelf.
Maybe it's in here. All right, so let's talk about manifestation determination. So as we're pulling stuff for our audit, we're having to look through some of this information. So we just wanted to talk with you a little bit about MDRs. So since August 2017, since August 1st of this school year, across the district, we've held 12 MDRs. Why does it matter? What are they for? So you all should know that, we're holding MDRs for these 3 reasons below. It's a violation of safe schools, which would be drugs, weapons, or seriously bodily injury, when a student is at day 11 of suspension, or if a student is up for expulsion. So what we're finding is looking through some of these MDRs, we may be having them for reasons that we wouldn't necessarily hold an MDR. So if you're considering holding an MDR, you're not sure if you should, please reach out to Emily or I so we can help guide you. And again, they're looking at this in terms of discipline and behavior, and that's what the state's really looking at it for. But anything, we need to be kept in the loop, especially with expulsions. So you need to make sure you reach out to Emily or I in terms of if you have a student that's being put up for expulsion for the MDR. So for instance, like the 12 MDRs that were held this year, neither one of us had any idea that there were even MDRs happening. So So make sure you reach out to us, shoot us an email, and let us know, just so we're in the loop.
Even if you know how to do the MDR and you're totally comfortable, just say, hey, here's what I've got going on, just so we can kind of keep track of that and get a red flag if anything needs to be assessed.
Oh, so here's our SCL screenshot. Sorry, I put it in the wrong place. So this is from PowerSchool. So at the top left, you see where it says State Providence SC. That's on the left-hand side of the PowerSchool. That's where you're going to click. And then you're going to scroll down and click to where it says Pre-Code. And when you get to Pre-Code, you'll see that screen on the right, and you see it says Alternative Assessment. So there you would click Yes for those students taking SCL. And be sure you list the test administrator's first name and last name. You don't have to worry about the test school ID, but you need to click yes or no for alt assess. And if it's yes, you don't have to list accommodations or anything. It's just a yes or a no. Make sure you list the administrator's first and last name and that they are spelled correctly. The other thing you want to make sure that's correct is the child's birth date in PowerSchool. We've had some situations where the birth date was wrong, so we were administering the wrong test. Because remember, SCL goes by age, not by grade. So make sure birthdays are correct and test administrators are in there, and that it is screenshotted. That the question is answered yes if they're SCL kids.
Enrich requests. So I handle a majority of the Enrich requests. Our Enrich accounts are handled by a technology vendor called BC3. They create all of our accounts in an LDAP and manage them once they're created. But you'll see if you have a question about an account, I usually copy the person from BC3 that we work with. Please do not email him independently or BC3 independently. Always go through me because it might be a question that I can answer, and he's really overwhelmed with the amount of account requests that we get. So please just go through me. Make sure you're using the correct form. That was updated on the bookshelf maybe about 2 months ago, so make sure if you've got it saved in your favorites to save the correct one, because if you're requesting on the old form, it's not going to go anywhere. So the new link is on here under number 2. Only school administration, including school special ed coordinators, can request access for another user. So don't be giving this link out to your teachers to request for other teachers. It's only for school admin and school coordinators to use. You cannot request access for yourself. So we've had in the last few weeks a couple new coordinators and new school leaders who have submitted the Enrich request form for themselves. If you need access and there's no one else at your school to request it for you, just shoot me an email and I'm happy to fill out the form for you. Accounts are generally created on Mondays and Fridays, so if you submit on a Tuesday, just know that it might be until Friday that you get a response with your credentials. If you need it, if there's an emergency and you need to get in like right away, you need to email me that along with the receipt number that you'll get from the form you fill out so that I can send that on to our tech vendor to get them to do it right away. If a request is taking longer than usual, please just email me. We've noticed that the automated emails are getting sent to junk mail and clutter. So there's some problem solving that we'll do with you because I do get a receipt as each of the accounts are created. I can tell you the time and the date that it was sent to you. So if it's taking longer than usual, just email me and we will get to the bottom of it. MFS. So I put an updated list of dates for reimbursement requests for each claim. That is on the bookshelf under IDEA Finance. If you go to the regular bookshelf link with all the special ed information, go to the top where it says Home, and then scroll down to IDEA Finance, and you'll see the dates for each of those claims. I also shared those in the operator notes last week and this week for your school years to see. So we're trying to be much more organized with our MFS claims. For this quarter, there are only 2 claims, so it's really important that you're keeping track of those. The last claim was due on November 3rd, which was Friday of last week. I sent an email about that one. The next one is due November 27th, and then again on January 2nd. So those are claims, I believe, 6 and 7. So make sure that you're working with your school leaders, your finance people, whoever's in charge of touching that money and doing the reimbursement claims for that. Please make sure that you're keeping evidence of your purchases and use and implementation of those items, because at some point there will be site audits. So if your plan says that you bought a bunch of flexible seating, somebody might show up and ask you where that is and how it's being used and how it is helping you with whatever you said it would, ELA, math, or grad rate. So just please really keep track of that stuff, because we're going to be scheduling our on-site audits for that stuff, and we're going to want to see how it's working and what you did. So our audit update, we've had 2 on-site visits, and we've got 4 to go. This week we have an on-site visit at YPA, Meyer Center, and Green. And next week we have our last on-site visit at Felton. On Tuesday of next week, the auditors show up at our district office. Laura and I will be here the entire week next week. Please just kind of keep an eye on your email and phone, because if we're missing things like signature pages or any kind of documentation, we might need to call you and say, hey, can you scan this over really quick, because they're going to be looking at all of our files next week. We've completed a parent interview. We just completed this afternoon an administrative interview. Actually, they might still be in there. And we'll be completing more parent interviews and teacher interviews next week. Our staffing sheet was sent back with some corrections and questions. If we haven't contacted you, you're good, but if we have contacted you, please make sure that you get the answers back to us. We are going to need to turn that back in on Monday. So timelines, it's kind of come to our attention lately. I think it's just, we're getting into that time of year. It's getting busy again. It's getting close to the holidays. That we're noticing a lot of missed due dates. We ran the current summary report yesterday and had 25 overdue IEPs, which is a lot. So we just wanted to talk to you about due dates and timelines and making sure that you're staying on those things. So plan out your due dates well before they're due, and we talked about this a few months ago, when we had Irma. Give yourself time for emergencies. Give yourself time for weather delays. Anything that might stop you from meeting that timeline, try to plan out 2 or 3 weeks in advance, so if you have to reschedule, you'll have plenty of time. You also want to notify others who might be required to help you meet the due date. So if you're depending on a school site to complete a report, you need to tell them, when it's due and when you want it to you, so that you can review it and all of that good stuff. Develop a system to keep you on track. So this is really important. We've had schools that have made spreadsheets or they have a Google Calendar, whatever works for you. Make sure that you're using it and that the dates in it are correct. If you have old dates or you mistyped a month, you could find yourself out of compliance just from a simple mistake like that. If you don't meet timelines, you risk letters of caution from us at the district. You risk your movement of your status on the capacity and growth index spectrum, so you could go from good standing to caution or caution to breach. You could have findings from the state. You're going to risk having a lot of denial of fate meetings, because every time that you miss a timeline, that's a discussion you're going to have with the family, and due process hearings depending on how bad the timelines have been missed. So it's really important. If a parent causes you to miss a deadline, because we know that happens sometimes, for example, if they fail to produce their child for the evaluation, or they fail to respond, or you have a date scheduled and they just stop showing up, we expect loads of documentation in a RIDGE. I shouldn't just see your standard meeting notices sent home. We should see a lot of documentation that you called the parent, you talked to them, you emailed them, you sent certified mail, all of the ways that you've tried to get them in. Please make sure that you have that in the contact log.
Yeah, and remember, we have to submit these timelines. A lot of them are for state reporting. So if we have schools missing, let's say like DD timelines, so that's a huge one. So remember, those kids have to be evaluated before they turn 10. So even if you have a student that moves in as a transfer student and they're going to almost be 10, your 60 days doesn't apply there, you have to get it done before they turn 10. Yes, that stinks. It puts you guys on, a really strict timeline, but those are things we report to the state. And honestly, what you don't want to happen is a finding for everybody because of, a few situations. So that's one example. The other one would be like initial timeline. So those initial evaluations, they have to happen. That's why Emily's saying make sure you plan out well in advance and allow yourself for time to get them done and to schedule meetings.
And I think I talked about this summer, but I know there's a lot of new coordinators since then. It's as little a number as 7 students. In our entire district, if 7 students miss an initial evaluation, that could push us from in compliance to not in compliance. So don't let you be the one reason that an entire district is out of compliance. Just really keep on that stuff. If you're having trouble getting stuff done, like, getting evaluation organized and coordinated, please call us well ahead of time so that we can help you problem solve and help that get done. Oh, don't freeze now. Okay. Yeah, multiple disabilities.
So let's talk a little bit about the MD disability. So that again is something, aside from our 2 audits that we have going on, we've also are being put through a financial audit. I mean, can the state do this anymore at one time? But anyway, one of the things we had to send to them was they were looking at students with multiple disabilities, but they wanted to know about what those specific disabilities were, because as you guys are coding it in Power, for EFA, we need to know what makes up that disability. So when you're identifying a student with a multiple disability, the team must identify the disabling conditions that make up the MD in the evaluation. So your psychologist needs to clarify what are the disabling conditions that make up that MD disability. And please also note it in the prior written notice. Many are saying, the student is eligible as a student with multiple disabilities. And that's kind of it. So make sure you say the disabling conditions are. Because what the auditors do is they look at those disabilities based on the evaluations and then look at the funding in EFA and the coding to make sure that they match up. So for students who transfer in with an MD where you're not necessarily determining the eligibility, please note in the prior written notice what those specific disabilities are. Some of you are doing it, some of you aren't, but we need it to be consistent that everybody is identifying the specific disabilities that make up that one MD category.
Okay, so as Laura was talking, I just was thinking of a couple extra things. So it's 2 things. One is that the child count verification was due on Friday of last week, November 3rd. We have probably a little over half of them back. We have a lot of them still missing, and Laura and I are going through and emailing you for the ones that we do not have yet. We need those by close of business tomorrow. You have to verify that those students were at your school so that we can turn around and submit our report to the state on Friday. The other thing that I wanted to remind you of, files. If you have any files that were chosen for the IDEA Part B audit, they were to have been mailed by Friday of last week as well. We still have maybe just a handful of schools that we don't have anything from. I'm assuming that they are in the mail. We just haven't received them yet. But we'll shoot you an email and just make sure that you sent them in the mail. So if you haven't done that, please call us because we're going to need to figure out another way to get them. I'm going to go to the chat box now and see if there's any questions. Oh, and it looks like there are no questions this week, so if you need anything, please email us. We are going to stop the recording and post on the bookshelf momentarily. And one more reminder, we have our January face-to-face on the 29th. We have some really fun things for that day. We've got some people coming in from the State Department to do professional development on transition, autism, and DDSN is coming to talk about some transition stuff too. So it's going to be a really great day.
And you can hear from other people besides us.
Yeah, it's going to be a great day. We're looking forward to it, and we hope that you guys all get something out of it. If you have any other ideas of things that you want to hear us talk about that day, please shoot us an email so we can include it in our planning.
Just a reminder, like Emily said, next week we have the state here, so we're kind of on call for them. I haven't canceled any weekly calls. I don't think Emily has either, but please be aware if we don't answer at your scheduled time, it's because we're dealing with something with the state that they're requesting. So my plan is to keep the times.
Yep.
But, if you call and we don't answer, it's because of that. We'll call you back.
Yep.
So we're kind of at their mercy next week.
Shalonda, the meeting on the 29th, we usually will send out a reminder before, and we'll ask anybody to just let us know that they're coming, because we can only fit 50 people in the room. So it's usually a max of one person from a school, but we have some bigger schools that bring a couple more people. So we'll just shoot you guys an email closer to the time, probably beginning of January. All right, everybody, have a great week, and hopefully we won't need to talk to you next week, but please answer if we call. Have a good week. Bye.
Bye.